My name's Francis Castro. I work for the Greater London Authority. I'm the London Nature Recovery Policy and Programme Manager. And we'll just kind of go to Sarah next, just for an introduction.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Smith. I also work with Francis at the GLA, and I am the London Local Nature Recovery Officer.
Go to Katie.
Hello everyone, I'm Katie Skingle. I'm the MD of CAT Marketing, and we're helping the GLA facilitate the LNRS engagement process.
Thank you, Katie. Over to you, Victoria.
Hi everyone, I'm Victoria Cleanthus. I'm Senior Community Officer with Green Space Information for Greater London, along with Emily, and we've been helping the GLA with the LNRS process.
Thank you. And Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Hawkes. I also work for Google, and I've also been helping GLA with the LNRS, and I'm the Nature Recovery Data Officer.
Thank you all. And various members of the team will be kind of joining us in the presentation. So what I'll do to start us off is share my screen with the slide deck that we've prepared. So let me do that now. Hopefully you all can see that.
If you have any questions, just to say as we go along, we have a slot for answering questions at the end, but if you put them in the Q&A as and when you think of them, and then we can come to them later.
Thank you, Sarah. So yeah, please feel free if you do have any questions to input into that kind of setting there. So just to give you an overview of the structure of the this lunchtime session, I'm going to go through a few slides just to give you an update on so far with regards to the London LNRS around kind of what we've kind of what's been happening kind of across, especially this year. We will have a couple of silo polls, which I'm sure you'll all love. They're kind of very, very brief ones. One's just to get a little bit of feedback in terms of our engagement so far in the process, but also we've got an important kind of list there. We'd very much like your opinions on to give us your rank in terms of the nature conservation actions that we've been picking up on as being kind of recurring, and also especially within kind of across London in terms of their importance for species and habitat recovery. Then we're going to move on to the LNRS interactive map demo. We're going to start off with that first with an introduction from Giggle, who are the Green Space Information for Greater London, and they'll give a little introduction to themselves as well. That'll feed into the live demo, which I'll run, which I will share my my screen of the interactive map in action. I'm planning to showcase some sites and how to operate the interactive map. And then we've got kind of 5 minutes for yourselves to kind of use the map kind of during the webinar itself, and to kind of give it a try based on kind of what you've just seen. Also, we'll have kind of assistance during the session as well, just in case you get stuck with anything. We'll look through the questions in the question and answer kind of tab, and we'll try and answer as many of them as we can during the kind of the roundup, and then we'll look to close promptly at 2 o'clock. Okay, we'll get started. So I know some of you are probably quite aware what the LNRS, or the local nature recovery strategies, are, but I'll just go through this again for those who are kind of, this is a little bit new. So they are a new system of spatial biodiversity strategies. So set in place within the Environment Act 2021. This is kind of the government strategy to support efforts to recover nature across England for that joined up approach, support the delivery of biodiversity net gain, kind of BNG, which I'm sure some of you may have heard about, and also helping to deliver the national environment targets kind of that have been set. So as part of this process, we will be working very closely with, we've got the 32 London boroughs and the City of London as well. We that we have to work as well, and we'll be working, of course, very closely with Natural England, and we have 6 neighbouring counties as well surrounding us. So Essex, Hertfordshire, Berkshire, Buckinghamshire, Surrey, and Kent. I'm glad I remembered those. Well done. So the LNRS is actually will split into 2 parts. So we have the written part, which is a statement of biodiversity priorities, and we have the maps section, or kind of we call it the spatial section, and this is called the local habitat map. So the statement of biodiversity priorities is a description of London in terms of its in terms of its nature, a description of the nature we do already have. A lot of that is already recorded, so we're very lucky here in London to do that, but it's a great opportunity to make sure that we've captured everything through this process, and also to highlight where the opportunities where the opportunities exist for the local nature recovery strategy. The important element as well, which we're working towards at the moment, is the priorities, the strategic priorities and measures. So basically, we're looking at what habitats and species are in particular risk in London over the next 10 years, and looking at those specific actions and measures that we need to put in place to alleviate that risk. So what the local habitat map will do is, first off, we have a layer which we call the areas of particular importance, and that's just collating all the existing designated sites we have here in London, and that's putting that under kind of one banner, areas of particular importance. Now, the areas that could become of particular importance is where we come in, as well as what the interactive map could really help us with as well, your input in particular. It's looking at where those opportunity areas are, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're new. It could be areas that are existing habitat but require further work, restoration, or continuous management as well. So through that process on the local habitat map, we're looking for a pipeline of opportunity areas of projects and locations where, within our statement of biodiversity priorities, where we've put together our priority actions and species and habitats, we can map that spatially where that needs to happen. This is quite a granular process, and hopefully I'll explain that through the next slides. But why is this all needed? It sounds very complicated. There has been other things in place before, the Biodiversity Action Plan, BAP system, some of you will know about as well. But the average decline in species abundance of there's an average decline in species abundance of 32% across England, which is not great. It's terrible. Nearly 1 in 6 species are threatened from extinction. And the UK isn't doing very well globally in terms of that as well. So we need to do something kind of proactive and different that complements our existing systems that we have in place. It doesn't replace them. And this leads us really nicely into what it is not. So the LNRS is not a site designation or site protection system. It does not forward any new protections or designates sites. It doesn't, and it does not replace their existing sites of importance for nature conservation system, SYNC system here in London. London's very lucky. We have over 1,600 designated local wildlife sites called SYNCs, and that's still going to continue, and it still has a credible value here in London. What the LNRS here is to do is to complement the SYNC system by looking at opportunities to join up, as well as opportunities as well where perhaps we can improve some of those SYNCs as well. So this reminds us nicely of what it is. It's a project pipeline for nature recovery. So through the process, we're kind of bringing together defined nature priorities and specific management measures. So through that, we'll be able to identify and map particular projects. So I hope some of you kind of familiar with the kind of project pipeline. It's basically a list of projects across London that can deliver, that have the potential to deliver these against these defined priorities that we're looking to implement here in London that will have an impact for nature. So in terms of implementation for nature recovery strategically, as an overarching document to coordinate the vision for London, the London Nature Recovery Strategy will be very important as part of that. It also, because it's very granular in its detail in terms of we're looking at particular areas, not necessarily sites as well, but particular areas of where we can implement particular projects. It's around looking at those smaller projects and looking at the cumulative impact across London. That was a bit of a tongue twister for me today. So, and all this together, we're looking at producing an evidence base for funding that we can use to argue the case for the works that we're putting forward to government, which I think is the last point here, but I think very, very important. And I've put underlined cumulative impacts for smaller projects and the evidence base for funding as something kind of very pertinent for today in particular. So we need what the LNRS needs. It needs habitat and species priorities for nature recovery in London. So the measures, and that's the actions or interventions. That's the management kind of like project action that's needed to deliver these priorities. And I'll go through a couple of examples kind of in the next couple of slides, and through the mapping system, the interactive map in particular, it's giving you the opportunity for you to tell us where these are best focused. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of examples. So these are kind of, I guess, quite countryside-y ones, or kind of outer London, but they give the pictures are quite nice. And it's one that I'm familiar with. Hainault. This is based around Hainault Forest, which is a site that I used to kind of in my previous role used to be involved in. It's very dear to me. And one of the priorities I'm going to go through the next 3 slides around skylarks and some of the measures that you could associate with that, and how the mapping kind of interrelates with that. So in terms of our priority here, it's skylark. So one of the measures that we put in place that in terms of in kind of maintaining, but also improving the condition of the kind of the ground nesting habitat for them within the kind of this patch of grassland here at the forest, was to install some kind of fencing, which was to protect the area over the breeding season between kind of April and I think it's up to October. Now, this is an example of the fencing here, and as you can see, we've marked the area where the fencing is go in place. Now, this has actually already happened, but what it is to demonstrate that these are this is the kind of the process or kind of the sequencing in terms of the thought process in terms of how you identify those particular locations. It's not about drawing a ring around the entire site, Hainault Forest, but particularly where within the site there's a particular opportunity to enhance, recover nature. So the next one here, again, we're going back to skylark, but this is a nice measure, and this is around signage. So kind of people management, and I'm there behind Susie with my dog in front of me. There's a nice sign with a lead, and the sign there asking people walking in this area, within this grassland area, to inform them that they've got lovely skylarks there, of course, and if you wouldn't mind keeping your dogs on a lead or under control so they don't scare the birds while kind of they're doing what they need to. And again, mapping that there as well. And this next one is a really, really important element, and that is the other thing that's very kind of for us here in London that we really want people to focus on is management. And for skylarks in particular, the grassland or other ground nesting birds, and there'll be kind of other kind of creatures that are reliant on kind of annual management of certain nature conservation sites as well. So that annual grassland and scrub management is really important. So I've got there an example of people doing it, as well as a picture of a longhorn cow there doing the same thing as well. That was in Epping Forest, so I can't say that's happening in Hainault Forest. Again, mapping where that could take place, or that could actually take place in a much wider area, but just to give you an example. So that is the sequencing that we're looking for with regards to the mapping, and that can be applied in a situation like this, but it can also be applied kind of in a much more urban area. And when I go through the demo later, that's what I'm going to be focusing on, just in case you may be a bit worried that it doesn't apply to you. Nature is everywhere, and we want to make sure that we've got an idea of where your ideas and opportunities are. So what I'm going to do now is go through just the timeline of where we are. So there has been kind of a fair amount of work that's gone gone on over the summer. The bulk of these have been the LNRS thematic workshops that took place between July and August. Part of that was to engage with kind of key kind of like pan-London groups and organisations to kind of generate a list of key priorities for London. And kind of as well, kind of after those sessions, what we have also put in place is we've opened the LNRS interactive map. This is kind of the bit that we really want you guys to focus on at the moment for today. And that closes, we've extended the submission date to the 13th of October as well. So please do pass on after this webinar this link to your friends and colleagues. We're also parallel to that working on kind of refining those biodiversity priorities and also working on our species shortlist. So we've been, the species shortlist in particular, been working really closely with GIGGLE, kind of who's a London Environment Record Centre, but also the London Natural History Society and other organisations that represent species across London to kind of refresh our species long list, which is over, I think, well over 500 species, and we're looking at putting, kind of refining that long list into a short list. So focusing on the more at-risk species within the next 10 years that we need to focus on, and putting them into what we call assemblages, which is groups defined by either their habitat or like a management intervention. We're really focused on management interventions here because we know that's a really important aspect of kind of the nature conservation work that we need to address. So November to January, we've got the data analysis and mapping, and kind of we will have another pre-consultation kind of period with our local authority partners, and then we'll move into public consultation between April and June, all things going well. Hopefully, we're looking to publish the LNRS basically end of the summer. So fingers crossed that should work. Right. Hope that's a good overview of where we are. What we're going to do now is have a little, well, we're going to move over to Katie. So she'll be, yeah, I'll hand over to you, Katie.
Thank you, Francis, and thank you everyone that has been involved in the previous events to date, and for your input. It's been very helpful and useful as always. To engage in the Slido polls, for those that have previously been to anything, you might already still have it on your phone. If not, please do look to download the app, or you can access it just via search engine at slido.com. If you can, on this occasion, please log in if you have got previous access details, or sign up so that we can actually attribute, in this particular scenario, the polls to the attendees. We're going to give you a couple of minutes just to do that. Again, if you've got any questions on how to do that, but it's a pretty simple process. Once you land there, you head to the top right-hand corner to sign up, and you just put in your email address and your name, and you should be able to register an account. So as we give you a couple of minutes to do that, I'll just talk about what we're going to move forward with, which is there's going to be 2 Slido polls, one of which will be the LNRS engagement so far. Very simple, couple of questions about whether you've inputted to date, and Slido poll 2, which is to do with the ranking of nature recovery measures, which I will again go through on that slide. But right now, hopefully you're on slido.com, you've entered your email address, and you've signed up, or you've logged in so that you're able to access Slido. If we can move to the next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. So Slido has a couple of different ways in which you can utilise the polls. You can scan the QR code that's in front of you on your phone or on a device, if it's of a mobile scenario, and that will immediately take you to the poll that you're looking for. Equally, you can enter the meeting code, which is detailed there as the first poll being 7310360, 7310360. That will take you through to the first LNRS engagement survey questions, which effectively will just be multiple choice click through answers. They will say things like, which borough are you from? And it will just give you a couple of minutes to do that, just so that you know the Slido poll will remain open until end of play today. However, this one in particular is quite a quick one to be able to deliver. So if you're able to do it in the couple of minutes that we've got now, that will be great. However, as I've said before, we will remain these open. So if you make a note of the number, you can always go back in after and input at that point. The first one is 7310360, and it will literally be things like, have you engaged before? Have you inputted into the map? And a little bit about the engagement to date, so that we can check that the boroughs are all are able to input on the same kind of level, and they're all getting the engagement aspects through. Please fill those out, so we've got contact details of the different groups that can be represented. That'd be very much appreciated. Move to the next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. Now, Slido poll 2 has a totally different number. So again, after you've completed that first one, you'll need to make a note of this number if you want to look to rank the measures that are provided. Now, it's quite important to note that the list has been consolidated from the nature recovery intervention measures so far. So they are identified by the London species specialists as being vital to be considered for the local nature recovery strategy. We do know it's incredibly difficult to rank and everything is important, but these are the ones that are kind of shortlisted to be into a scenario where we'd like you to list your top 5. So as hard as that is, we do ask for you to be able to do that so that we can be able to prioritise what the measures should be. So 1409627, or again, scan the QR code. That will take you through to that list. Again, should you want to be able to do that post this call, this is being recorded, as you've been noted, and that will be sent round to registered attendees. Equally, if you make a note of that number now, then you will be able to go in until end of play today to do that. But again, if you'd like to do that whilst we're on the webinar, we're going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. So Slido poll 1 and Slido poll 2. First one in terms of engagement and a bit more details about yourselves. And second one, if you could rank those prioritised measures, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. That's brilliant. So as Katie mentioned, if you've got until kind of the end of today to fill out these polls if you need a bit of extra time to think about it, and we really do appreciate your responses on those. They'll be incredibly useful to us. Right, I will move on to the next slide. So this next section here, we're going to be going to hopefully what everyone's come here today for was the interactive map demo. We've got a few words here from Giggle to start us off with. So I'm going to hand over to Victoria. Over to you, Victoria.
Great, thank you, Francis. Hope everyone can hear me okay. Thank you very much for joining today. So I'm a Senior Community Officer with Green Space Information for Greater London. We are the local environmental record centre for London, and we've been helping, as I said in my brief intro, with shortlisting priorities, conversing with experts, helping set up the interactive map for the LNRS. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction to who Google are and how we're relevant to this whole process, and if you want to come to us for any of our services. So next slide, please. Thank you. So as I say, we're the Capital's Environmental Record Centre, which means we mobilise, curate, share access to, and try and promote the understanding of data that underpins London's natural environment to enable our stakeholders to make informed decisions in policy and practice. Those stakeholders are largely broken down into our community stakeholders and our partnership stakeholders, so the GLA being one of our partners. As you can see on that slide, our vision is that London's natural environment is protected, improved, understood and enjoyed for the benefit of nature and people. And we belong to this wider network of environmental record centres managed by the Association for Local Environmental Record Centres, also known as ALERC. So on the map, you can see all these different boundaries that exist, and you can see Giggle on there as well. There's approximately 1 LRC, as we're known, per county in the UK, and you can access this map if you're not based in London or just curious through the LNRS website. It was created by COFNOD, who are the North Wales Environmental Information Service, so the LRC for North Wales. Most of us operate independently, so we're not a government organisation largely, and generate our income through services rather than external funding. Giggle in particular began as the Biological Recording Project from the London Wildlife Trust in 1996, but we became a fully fledged record centre in 2006 and an independent community interest company 11 years ago. We're also a social enterprise, so we're guided by those standards as well as those set by LNRS and other sort of data regulatory organisations. And we split our work because we're a CIC. We generate money through our services and put that into our community services, which is the side of the business that I represent and help to manage. And largely, then those services differ a little bit, but I'm here mainly focusing on the community side of things. Next slide, please. So like other LRCs across the country, we manage a wide range of data sets, which can be largely split up into our species, our habitats and urban greening, open spaces and protected sites. Like sinks, sites of importance to nature conservation. Today, you're going to be making really helpful suggestions of habitat action opportunities, which we'll be using in concert with our habitats and protected sites and open spaces databases within the local nature recovery strategy. Next slide, please. So I work mainly with that species database, which can be sort of split into our designated invasive and well, all species kind of categories. And the biological recording is kind of the bread and butter of local environmental record centres. As I say, we began as the Biological Recording Project. So it's all about generating species records. So that's, if you're interested in that, that is something that we can help with. And the pyramid just on the right represents this kind of data flow of species information from like this local level, which record centres help to collate, up to the National Biodiversity Network, their Atlas, and then GBIF, which is the Global Biodiversity Information Forum or facility. So there's a kind of international flow of data, and it adheres to national and internationally recognised standards for data management and storage, as well as complying with fair data principles. So that's findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable data to make sure that it is accessible and easily understood by the general public. So yeah, anything that you can contribute to us will both help with the local nature recovery strategy as well as potentially broader implications as well. Next slide, please. So from this very confusing data flow diagram, we've tried to kind of outline how difficult data flow can be in London and where Giggle sits within all of this kind of chaos. This is specifically about species records generally, but you can see that data comes from everywhere, is shared by all different groups, comes in different forms, and you can kind of also see I've highlighted and included some of our different stakeholders, so our partners like the GLA, and then sort of community partners and regular groups that we collaborate with like Citizen Zoo, as well as individual recorders and those integral recording societies like London Natural History Society. So that kind of awkward highlighted area is sort of the stakeholders that I as a community officer tend to work with, and most of this work is done for free, just to put that out there. Next slide, please. And the work that we do can kind of broadly be broken down into these main categories of data stewardship. So collecting, curating data, data provision, sharing that data within its extracts, data visualization, creating lots of maps, and other kind of data viz. So, you know, charts, graphs, infographics, data interpretation, including reports and statistics, support and engagement, so attending and speaking at workshops like this, and advice and consultancy on projects specifically around biological recording or modelling, things like that. Next slide, please. So this slightly also messy slide shows some of the examples that we do for the community. So on the left, there's an example of some data visualization. So it's a pie chart showing the number of species that we've obtained through our species database for a particular site, broken down by taxonomic group. We also incorporate these designs and visualizations into our community reports, which are currently in the process of automating to make that output faster while still retaining a bespoke element. We have open data sets as well. Not all of our data can be made open due to our business model, but the map in the background shows data from our Discover London webpage, where you can access information about protected sites, wildlife crime, rivers and open water bodies, things like that. And we also give presentations, as I say. So this culminates in our annual London Day of Nature celebration, which is taking place later this month. It is unfortunately, but good for us, sold out this year. But if you stay tuned to our YouTube channel, you'll be able to access the videos at a later date. And we'd love to see you there next year. And also, I'm putting together a community survey right now, which will help us better understand the services that we can offer, and to promote that we can do lots of our work for the community for free. So if you'd be interested in that, please get in contact. Next slide, please. And so just to summarise the work that we have been doing for the LNRS, we've been assisting the GLA as we have previously done when, as Francis mentioned, the habitat and species action plans were created. So in the top left corner, we've been helped with the work of local planning authorities. We've been updating our sites of importance nature conservation data set, as well as other statutory sites like local nature reserves, to make sure that all that data is accurate and up to date and can be incorporated into areas of particular importance within that local habitat map. And if you just mind clicking once more, Sarah. There we go. And this demonstrates the work we've been doing with our species experts, the network that we work with quite closely, just showing how we've been helping the GLA to prioritise those species for that statement of biodiversity priorities. And on the right is an example of one of our ecological network maps, which basically map sort of habitat value based on such site data and habitat information and our species records as well. And it's that kind of work that will be pulled together along with suggestions from the interactive map, which we also help to create and are managing. All of that information will come together along with external data sets to help create the LNRS to provide a spatially accurate blueprint for where specific habitat interventions recovery could occur across London in a kind of spatially specific manner, like Francis has demonstrated. So thank you, and thank you for your contributions to the LNRS map. They're really valued. And that's me.
Thank you, Victoria. That was a really interesting and useful kind of, I guess, warm up to the next session, and also to highlight some of the great work that Green Space Information for Greater London do, and to highlight the point. Giggle do a lot of work for communities, kind of as community organisations, groups, kind of that they offer that service for free. So I would really recommend you reach out to Victoria if you've got any further questions on data, especially obviously around wildlife kind of data after this session, if you do have any questions. So I'm going to move on now to the interactive map demo. So this slide here comes giving you a bit of a warm up, I guess, in terms of the kind of a sequencing layout of kind of what I'm going to do in a second. So what we're looking for, as we've kind of alluded to, is specific locations where we could deliver a specific measure that will result in a positive result for whether it's a priority species or a priority habitat, or kind of a kind of a group of species, or something that will recover nature in general. It's it's quite, you know, kind of quite open as it sits. I mean, this is a very traditional, you know, kind of like piece of acid grassland here. This site here is Claybury Park over in Redbridge. So Redbridge is kind of the borough that I used to work in, also kind of reside in, so I'll know it quite well. And it's about identifying those specific areas. But it doesn't have to be, I guess this is quite technical. It doesn't have to be that as technical as that, but it can be quite, especially if you're looking with regards to your own park and open space. Kind of those small scale interventions are very useful as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to move over to sharing a kind of the interactive map page that I should have open already. So hopefully you guys should see that screen there. So when you go on to the interactive map, and you're all going to get a chance to do this yourselves very, very soon, you will kind of come to this page here. There's the usual blurb around, you know, what the local nature recovery strategy is and what we want from the interactive map. There's an option as well to see what has been suggested so far, so you can click there. You can do that later at your pleasure to see kind of what other people have done in your local area. But we're very focused on what we can do now. So I'm going to put in, I'll respond as a London resident, and you've got the option there of putting in your email address if you want for Giggle to contact you afterwards if they want any clarifications. And this is the important bit. So while you're doing this, kind of filling out the map after this session or today, I'd really like you just to click on this button here where it says Lunch and Learn London Nature Recovery Interactive Map Tutorial, just to give us an idea of how many people have been inputting today after the session, and whether, you know, kind of the session, you know, kind of proved to be useful, or also give us some nice feedback as well in terms of the people that have attended today. So I'm going to focus on some kind of local initiatives that I know of. So we've got a list of habitats here, and obviously they're quite broad. So what I would say is that, you know, kind of some of these are very specific. The woodland's quite a nice one if you're looking at locations where you're looking to maybe plant, or kind of ideas of where new woodland could go, or whether there's areas where you could allow woodland to be created naturally, natural regeneration, which is totally valid and actually very valid kind of measure indeed. But we're going to focus today as a small intervention. It's an orchard. Orchards are a priority habitat for London, and what we're going to do now is I'm looking at creating more habitat. This is something that's already in train, happening this weekend actually. So what I'm going to do now is kind of make a selection. Kind of orchards are excellent for lots of different species. I'm gonna, you know, kind of I'm going to focus on, especially with the blossom. I'm going to say maybe just invertebrates as a particular one, and you don't have to be specific, and you just say all species if you don't want to. So what I'm going to do here is I've already got the location, but also you can put in the postcode of the location roughly where you want it to go. So I'm just going to pick this address there. So I click on that. I'm going to maximize the screen so you can see it a bit better. Now, if you want as well, you can go to this tab here to go to satellite, which some of you might find a little bit easier to kind of get your bearings on. But I do know I've been a GIS or kind of operator for quite some time, so I do need to check myself to make sure that I slow down for those who aren't familiar with these systems. But it enables you to kind of zoom in onto a particular area like we've got here. Now, the one thing that we can do here, so we've got a kind of local residents have got together to kind of work with the council to put in a brand new orchard in this kind of piece of green space here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw the polygon, or kind of the area, kind of using the tool there as accurately as you can, obviously. And there we go. We've got the area, roughly speaking, where the orchard's going to go. So once we've drawn that, we can get out of the main screen there. So we've got our area where this new orchard's going to be planted this weekend. In terms of a description, I'm going to give the name of the road here, Finchingfield Road, and then obviously put in if you've owned or managed. Obviously, as a London resident, I don't own or manage that land, so it'll be a no. And then it's a simple case of hitting submit afterwards, and that's it. Your kind of idea, your opportunity is logged, and off it goes. So I'm going to give you another example as well. I'm just going to go through the list one more time. So London resident here. Again, lunch. Remember, click that button there, lunch and learn, just for today. So I'm going to select a. I really like ponds, so let's get some standing water in there, and actually want to see. Let's see. We want to see maybe the option of expanding it even further. And again, I'm looking at the same area. We're going to focus on amphibians because it's a great spot for newts. So here we go, and it's a good spot for smooth newt. So let's come out of the map there. I'm going to select a new area. And what I'm going to do now is highlight where the pond is, and for argument's sake, if there was a chance of extending it a bit further or creating a bit of additional wetland. There we go. And complete, it's done. So again, we enter the name of the location. This is in Ray Park. Do you own or manage the land? It's no. And then we submit. At the bottom, we go down to the bottom of the page there and we submit. Obviously, you've got files, especially GIS files. I mean, this is for those that know, then please do share them. Otherwise, just use the map as it is. And again, we're looking for really small interventions with this. One of the things, if I had enough time, was to show you, for example, we've got some kind of across here, we have some kind of flower, kind of previously these were rose beds. Now these have actually been planted with like pollinator friendly planting. There's no harm if we were to go through this again to kind of, if I was going to select in terms of better improvement of existing habitat, to go through and in the other category here, I could say what type of habitat. So I just pollinator friendly friendly rose kind of like bedding. That's totally acceptable to put in through something that we would like, to focus on bees, and then you just draw your polygon around there. So we're looking for really granular data there, and I hope this is kind of quite useful for some of you. We're not after whole sites being ring fenced and kind of descriptive kind of text around the number of things that interventions. We're looking for a specific area with a specific intervention. So I'm going to stop sharing there. Hopefully I haven't run over time. What I'm going to do is going to reshare my screen and go back to the PowerPoint slides. And it's now your turn to use the map. So over the next, let's say we've got 5 minutes, we're going to go through, we're going to give you guys a chance to go through the map. So I think in the questions and answers section, the link will be posted up there if you haven't got it up and open, or if you would like to use your phone, if you've got a QR kind of code reader on your phone, you can access it on mobile as well. So please feel free to tap on that. So I'll give you some time to do it. There's no you don't have to. You can do it afterwards if you want. It's just whether you feel like giving it a go now to see if it works for you. And just as a bit of a reminder, remember to kind of click when you're on the page, to click that button there, or kind of the option there for Lunch and Learn London Nature Recovery Interactive Map Tutorial 1st of October. Okay, we'll give you a few minutes. Thank you, guys. Just a minute more, and then we'll move over to kind of questions from the Q&A tab. I do hope the I guess the granularity of the mapping and the principle around helping us to not only identify projects, but also identify where good work is happening at the moment, has come through. It's particularly the good work that has been going on at the moment. There's a button there that looks at, for you to be able to select better managed, and it's always an aspiration that we can, even where we are managing as well as we can manage better, especially kind of in terms of for the condition aspect, like where there's an opportunity for a patch of grass to be on a more kind of regular cut and collect cycle, for example, whereas maybe on something a little bit kind of low specification. I mean, that's a great aspiration for them. That will improve its floristic diversity and ability to, kind of provide more for pollinators. So don't be frightened to put in stuff that you're doing really well at the moment. That could do with the further inputs. But thank you very much for those who have taken part in kind of using the map. I'm sure it'll be really interesting to see, or extremely interesting for us to see later on today as well. So you've got up until the end of the day to kind of enter in your details onto that map. So we're going to move on to now Q&A. Right, let's see what we've got. Sarah.
Yes, so we've just got a couple. I've just published one in the chat because I think it might be useful for others about how you draw a polygon. So the icon, do you want to quickly just show the map on your screen again, Francis? And then we'll come back to the other ones, but just so you can see the bit where you come to draw the shape, what you need to click on.
See if right, is that looking good?
Yeah, so you should see that once you found your area, there's in the top right hand corner, there's two boxes. There's the one at the top with 4 squares in, and then there's the one underneath that kind of looks like a wonky square. That's the one that you need to click on to be able to draw on the map. So I hope that makes sense and has answered the question. If not, do reach out to us after if you're still having issues using the map. We've got we've got a sudden influx of questions now. So we've got one about whether the statement of biodiversity priorities, so that's the written part, will be setting out measures related to the priority species. So the answer to that is yes. It will, for both habitats and species, there will be the priorities that have been sort of agreed through this process. And then each of those will have associated measures. So that's the what. So yeah, they will be there. Another question about how this relates to Global Biodiversity Framework Targets 2 and 3. So for those who don't know, Target 2 relates to bringing 30% of degraded ecosystems into restoration by 2030. And 3 is about effectively conserving and managing 30% of land and sea by 2030. So yep, those are very much have kind of influenced the LNRS process. They've also kind of translated into national targets, which are things that we have to consider in putting together the LNRS. So it will very much feed in by helping to identify where, obviously within the scope of London, but where are those opportunities to restore those degraded ecosystems, and where are those places that might need some extra conservation and management. The next question we've got, would information about identified environmental enhancement projects being implemented by businesses be useful to input? So yes, as Francis has mentioned, it's useful if the project has already been completed, then it's kind of too late. But we're looking for what the future holds, basically. So very much suggestions of what that should be, whether or not there is a project in place. If you are putting something into the map that relates to a kind of already agreed project, if you could find somewhere to note that, that would be really helpful. I don't think we actually have a field for it, but maybe in the description, if you could just sort of put it in brackets, that would be really helpful, just so we know that that's something that's already in process and we can kind of differentiate it from projects that are kind of more at a suggestion stage. So there's a question also about how we're engaging people, which is a very good question. Obviously, this is part of that. And our interactive map at the moment is our main tool for a sort of broader engagement, sort of beyond the experts, or people who are kind of typically engaged in this sort of thing. We've been doing a lot of work with London National Park City, who've been helping us to reach out to sort of those smaller, maybe more community focused groups. And there's also, going back to the timetable that Francis showed, there's also a public consultation. So at the moment, we're very much in kind of gathering information mode with a sort of relatively blank sheet. And then over the coming months, what we're going to do is make that into a draft local nature recovery strategy. So there'll be some sort of more solid suggestions of what the priorities and measures and locations will be. And then that will be opened up to a public consultation as well. So here's a good one that I might put to Francis, which is, stop everyone hearing my voice all the time. What degree of oversight / verification is given to the inputs to ensure that they are realistic and achievable?
Sure. So we kind of, as the mapping closes on the 13th of October, we'll be going through a kind of a screening process. So working with Giggle, who already have kind of a very kind of good data sets with regards to the kind of their habitat suitability mapping for London. We'll be scanning kind of the entries to make sure that the habitats kind of put forward, or the suggestions put forward, are not impacting on existing kind of quite high value habitats in particular. I mean, the example I like to give is whether, you know, kind of woodland on heathland, for example, or kind of acid chalk grassland. That's an innocent mistake to make, but that's kind of enables us to kind of help to kind of screen those outputs. But also we are having quite a bit of work done in terms of kind of the pan London street, you know, kind of mapping that's being done around our kind of river restoration works. And also we've got some great work that's being done on kind of ponds across London too. So the idea is using this, you know, this broad London-wide kind of initiatives and kind of regional mapping to help link the suggestions that are being made, as well as, you know, kind of make sure that the suggestions are suitable. But also we've got a long consultation phase kind of directly with officers, kind of local authority officers and experts kind of in the new year. And, you know, after that screening phase and prioritization phase, we'll be looking at the kind of the output from that with boroughs to make sure that everything put forward is going to be, you know, kind of as going to deliver the best that they can do. There'll be kind of some good discussions around that, I'm sure. Hope that answers the question.
Great, thanks, Francis. We are nearly at the end. Do we have time for one more?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. There's a few that I might sort of merge into one. So we've had a few questions about first of all, if it's not quite, if the level of granularity of the map and what you can select. So there's some questions about if they're not quite there in deciding the project proposal, how can we, should that be entered? How can it be entered? And a few questions of what if you want to kind of select multiple habitats or species or multiple actions in terms of improving and joining up. So in terms of if there's some kind of details that you're not sure on about your project, I think basically just do what you can. It would be a shame to miss having the suggestion on the map because you're not there. So give what details you can do. If the polygon is, you know, if it's a bit rougher because you're not sure exactly where the project is going to take place, then that's fine. It's like I said, I think we'd rather have it on there than miss it altogether. And for those where there's sort of multiple things going on in one project, where possible, I think for just kind of for how we're going through the process, where possible, if you can put it in separately. So for example, if you want to improve a habitat, but you also want to join it with another, put in one submission for improving it and another submission for joining it up. And if you make sure that the kind of site name bit is the same, then we can make the link. If there's multiple, if there's kind of multiple species and habitats, again, if it's possible to separate it because one bit is one habitat and one bit is another habitat, but you can make the name the same so we know there's a link, then that's great. Otherwise, there are some free text boxes. So if you scroll down those big lists, there's an other box. So if you want to say, like, this is a variety of wetland habitats or whatever it is, there's an opportunity to kind of type that in manually as well. There's a question to explain about funding, which Francis touched on earlier. So I am happy to cover that. I guess the important thing to notice is at the moment, there isn't kind of specific LNRS funding. There's a possibility there might be, but there's kind of a big question mark over that because it depends on government spending reviews and things. But even if there isn't, one of the things that the LNRS will really help to do is help us to, and that's us, everyone, not just us here at the GLA, to prioritise where time and effort and money and funding should be going, where that is available, in order to kind of have the biggest impact for nature.
And also, if you're part of an organisation that carries out projects and you have to kind of submit funding bids to get funding for those, the LNRS should help form a really helpful evidence base to support those funding bids as well. We've got one more great question, which I'll pass to you, Francis, if that's all right. The question is, how are we building up to an overall strategy for connectivity rather than just lots of small disconnected sites? And for a bit of context, this person has said that their group has a data layer of suggested locations for green corridors in Southwark, based on existing community work and routes with potential for greening, and how can they share that information. So maybe if we take the how we working on connectivity first, and then the how can we share the information.
Fine. So in terms of the connectivity question, we in terms of helping us to one of the key things that we want to achieve through this process is find how we can identify these corridors, as you mentioned. I'll find a kind of a kind of a process to identify these corridors that links, these sites of importance for nature, our existing designated sites. Those are the kind of key opportunity areas, as well as I say within sinks themselves. So that's great that you found that, and we have tools that are mapping tools that enable us to do that. I think Giggle kind of touched on that slightly with Victoria's presentation. The ecological network mapping tool is something that's already active and used, and we will be using that to help us essentially model those kind of lines of best fit according to the entries that have been put forward. So in terms of the question of how best to submit your information to help us help the tool kind of work, kind of robustly, it's those individual kind of projects within those corridors that you will have identified, and submitting those. It's the weight of those individual projects that will kind of deliver the most for nature, especially in between those sites of importance for nature conservation. That'll be absolutely key, and that will drive kind of the tool. What I will say is that even if these opportunities do not make the final local habitat map, they will be something that landowners and local authorities will have, and will be really quite useful for kind of those local action plans. So the LNRS, the London Local Nature Recovery Strategy, think of it as the top tier strategic kind of overview of London. But we envisage, and we're starting to see now, that each boroughs now, when they're going through their next iterations of their previous biodiversity action plans, they're now converting to their own local nature recovery action plans. So the data that you submit, it might not hit the big if it doesn't hit the big strategic corridors, that's okay, because locally it will be very, very pertinent, especially for various types of kind of local projects as well. I hope that helps.
Great, that's all of our questions, and we are at time now, so I will leave it to Francis just to round off.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you all for for coming along today to this webinar. I hope it's been useful. I'm just going to reshare my screen again to make sure that you've got our access to our kind of our contact details. So that's us. If you want to kind of make sure that you've got our email address, if you've got any further questions, we can follow that up also through through the Q&A session. If there's anything particular there, we'll aim to follow that up with you that hasn't been answered today. And also with Victoria, if any of the community group members there have any more questions, specific ones about data and access, please do take a note of Victoria's details there as well. And yeah, we'll please kind of continue the conversation. It's a valuable one to have. As Sarah said, there's lots that we want to make sure kind of gets represented for nature here. The key thing is around how we can all work together to get those kind of really exciting projects in place, or projects kind of at least recognized. One of the things to point out is even stuff that doesn't make at the end the local nature recovery strategy. This is going to provide lots of great intelligence for kind of, especially for kind of the local authority that you're part of, as well as us. So it's not going to be a wasted effort to put in your opportunities. This still will be very useful. Okay, well, thank you very much. We're gonna end it there. It's been a pleasure to have you all today. There have been some great questions. You've been a great crowd. I'd like to thank the team as well for putting this together for today. And we look forward to your entries on the map or your kind of further questions. Thank you very much, and goodbye.